All right. Gosh. Is it already Saturday night at the Coast Film Festival? Kiss the Ground. Full disclosure, I've watched this film about 4 times. Actually, that was my 5th. It gives me great pleasure to bring out 2 gentlemen that can speak a lot to what this film is about and the good that's coming from this type of mindset. How about a warm Coast Film Festival welcome round of applause for Ryland Engelhart, producer of the film and founder of kisstheground.org. Come on out. And then, we got Evan Marks, founder of the Ecology Center down in Dana Point, which we all love. We've already covered that. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
So turns out I was just asking how you guys came to be, and you kind of had a connection even before this took film form. Can you share a little bit? Because it's kind of, rather serendipitous. How you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So almost 10 years ago, I went to New Zealand for a health and wellness conference. I've been in hospitality. Cafe Gratitude and Gracias Madre is kind of my family's businesses that we've been running for the last 15 years. So that brought me to New Zealand. I found myself in an audience of a panel discussion called Can Human Beings Sustain Themselves on Planet Earth? And basically 5 out of the 6 people said no, it's too late, we're screwed. And then the last person who spoke basically articulated this connection between photosynthesis, plants, trees, grasses, microorganisms, and this mechanism that could actually draw enough carbon down to turn the dials back.
I like the latter option with hope.
Right? And so, at the time, I was a vegan activist. I was an environmentalist. I thought I knew a lot about, what the solutions were. And I'm sitting there watching this conversation, brought to tears by the severity, and then also brought to tears by seeing something that I had just never even cognitized, just hadn't even come across my awareness. Even though I was a pusher of organic food and sustainability, I didn't understand the mechanism, the way that there actually could be life better in 3 generations. There was no story or mechanism or vision or pathway that I saw that. And so when I saw that, it changed everything for me. At first I was in disbelief. And I started to do more and more research, and I ended up bringing the guy Graham Sate, who had given that talk, to the U.S., and I had put him in front of a bunch of people, and he was able to communicate this thing that was awakened in me, and it just became like, all right, this is the most hopeful and compelling thing that I've ever come across, and for whatever reason, it's on my heart to make this message be known. And the cool, auspicious thing about Evan and the Ecology Center is I didn't know what kind of literally this started in my living room in Venice, sitting there with friends going, this is hopeful. I don't really see that many hopeful things happening on the planet. This is a compelling narrative. And if I hear the Al Gores of the world or the Bill McKibbins, this is 8 or 9 years, there's no mention of this being a viable solution. And yet, when I dig in and look at white papers, and I'm finding that there seems to be some evidence to this. And so we thought, all right, well, we're going to, I guess, turn into a nonprofit and to really have this message be, elevated and shared. Because when I was I would talk to people, and they would say, this is really compelling. Where should I learn more? And I'd be like, go online. I'm sure there's some YouTube videos about it. And at the time, there wasn't. And so we decided, all right, we're going to create this organization called Kiss the Ground, and Evan Marks and the Ecology Center was our fiscal sponsor that allowed us to become the nonprofit that then partnered to make this
Yeah, round
film.
of applause that he saw the vision, right? Because it's interesting, too, at that time. I mean, there was this push for organic, there was this push for biodynamic, but it didn't really have the implications, the upside, right, on a grand scale. Were you aware of, you were seeing it on I'd say, small to medium scale, the impact, or did you see the light early on?
I mean, listening to you, Ryland, I feel like I've sheltered myself from the realities or the scarcity consciousness of the world because I've spent the last 20 years seeing abundance in action in cultures all over the world, and that's just how we have always lived. And so I've been fortunate enough to be on a path that is really about agroecology or regenerative agriculture, where culture is still part of the production of food. And that's happening in small villages, large and small, all over the world. And so it's a reference point that's a little different than, I think, the normal. And I was inspired to continue bringing that to the larger scale.
When it comes to sequestration and all things regeneration, what is it you do just in the space down at the Ecology Center that you've seen, pay dividends within a short amount of time? Your approach to agriculture versus the agriculture that's down Ortega Highway, very, very different, right?
Yeah, it is very different. Any visitors to the Ecology Center? Yeah. So they know, the look and, it feels different, and the quality of the culture, right? And so we should talk a little bit about what qualifies the conversation of regenerative agriculture, and that's the petri dish of what it is, but it's celebrating diversity in all forms. And so we're seeking to create this harmony between the ecology, the economy, and the equity of the system. And so it's filled with trees and flowers and vegetables and herbs and children and future leaders and individuals like yourselves that are reaping the benefits from the health and wellness of what's coming from the ground up.
Was lucky enough to meet your Groms tonight. They are awesome.
Yeah.
They're out there. But you talked about the next generation. And I know Ecology Center has always been really active too. Yeah, getting that next generation. Every time I'm down there, I feel like I see another school kind of outing that's paying a visit.
Well, the nature is the pattern of nature in its form is about health and perpetuating positivity and regeneration. And so we're talking about agriculture and regeneration. We're in the form of culture. We need to do that obviously with our children. So it's all the same experience of how do we give more than we take, and how do we bring forward a new philosophy of living on this planet that's not actually new. It's just reimagining our relationship to it, because people have been living in harmony with this planet for thousands of years. We just got off kilter over the last 250. And clearly there's colonialization and exploitation that's been happening for thousands of years. But there's so many examples of health and connection. And so it's just, how do we, in this modern day, reconnect ourselves to that awareness? Yeah.
You guys have done such a good job at engaging, especially on the local level. Like I said, those that have gone down there, they're instantly hooked on it, which leads me to, on a more global scale of engaging. And I know with the foundation, you're trying to do that. You're trying to basically hook people in, give them the knowledge, but make them care. Tell us how you've done it and how it's evolving, where you're obviously going to get more involvement and care about what you guys are doing at Kiss the Ground.
Yeah, so again, I personally learned a new story and thought, wow, my life has altered, my worldview has altered. How do I have this awakening be duplicated in consciousness everywhere? And so this film took 7 years to make, in partnership with Josh and Rebecca Takal, the directors, who actually were the owners of the house that I moved into in Venice. So they moved out, I moved in, and on their way out I said, do you know about soil? Will you make this film? And they said no at first, but then I was very...
Well, soil wasn't sexy then. It's like it's becoming a little bit more sexy, right?
It is. It's becoming, yeah. So that was, we started off as an organization with the sole purpose to awaken people to the possibilities of regeneration. And so we've done that over the last 7 years through many different ways. We have 4 different programs as a nonprofit organization. The original kind of genesis was that we were going to just create content, media that really shared this possibility of regeneration, showing examples of this, because when we can see something, we can walk towards it, we can engender it, we can explore it, we can our creativity can emerge inside of that new paradigm or that new understanding. So we've created over 60 short films within the organization. More recently, we created a program called the Soil Advocacy Training. We really saw that because we weren't farmers, we weren't scientists, we weren't academics, we were like, all right, how do we catalyze passionate people to play a role in moving culture forward in this direction? And so we created this course called the Soil Advocacy Training. We've had over maybe 3,500 people in 40 countries around the world take this course that leads them to be empowered advocates and citizens in their own environment to play a role in how do we forward this understanding and the opportunities of regeneration, whether it's as an artist making murals, whether it's being someone who speaks passionately about this that gives a TED Talk, or someone who works in policy who, there's someone that just went through the course that brought, in Canada, $350 million, one of the largest stimuluses for soil-centered agriculture has just come into Canadian legislation through one of our soil advocates. And there's been many things that supported his life.
That's huge.
But
That's
it's huge,
right? We should mention too the directors of the film. They've got a new project coming out too.
Yeah, Josh and Rebecca Tikal, giving thanks. Amazing husband and wife out of Ojai. The second film is already in the can. It's called Common Ground, and it will be out in early 2023. And it's really speaking to the negative impacts of chemical agriculture on our human health, and also the economic opportunities of designing agricultural systems that mimic nature, as well as really incorporating a broader scale of diversity and sort of cultural lineage that has contributed to the conversation and the worldview of really understanding human beings' place in an ecosystem, and that we can actually be a keystone species and create a trophic cascade based on our participation versus a degeneration, which is mostly the way we relate to ourselves in relationship to nature.
Hashtag kill the till, right? Yeah. Before we head, I do want to give the opportunity just how people can get involved with the Ecology Center. I know you, like I said, you guys are so great at being connected to the community. Permission to plug, or just let us know how we can get involved and kind of get a little bit more activated.
Yeah, and even speaking outside of just the participation in our organization, but it's that this work of changing our relationship to the planet takes everyone's participation, and it's not just the farmer's responsibility to learn how to farm differently. So it's the invitation to you guys to think about how do we change our behavior, which is a good thing, which is how do we build more health and relationship to the ingredients that we consume, and that's all of them, and that's joy, and that's deliciousness, and all of the things in between, and we have those offerings for you guys every day. So you guys are friends and family of the center, so just keep coming back. The village that we're building is not just farmers, it's artists and children and teachers and chefs, and we're trying to create a culture, because the one that's around us is less interesting for the future, and so we all have the opportunity to come to the Ecology Center, but also do this work in your home, which is how do we imagine something that's very different, that seeks to the values of caring for the planet, caring for people, and sharing the surpluses. And we're a demonstration of that, but there are ways that you can bring that into your life that are countless.
You're a Shangri-La. I'm a huge fan, as I mentioned. And then obviously with kisstheground.org, I know you guys have a lot of foot soldiers out there. How can people get involved and be, kind of activated in their own area?
Yeah, so lots of ways. We it's actually kisstheground.com. We have tons of resources for individuals that want to get involved. We have courses if you wanted to create a regenerative garden in your backyard. We have an online course for that. We have the Soil Advocacy Training course. We're launching in March of 2022 a campaign called Regenerate America, Soils Our Common Ground, with an emphasis on how do we inspire this vision of the future that's possible through caring for, being a culture that cares for our land and for our soil, and that story is so compelling that we drive enough voters to really use their voice such that the 2023 Farm Bill actually reallocates resources such that farmers can be incentivized to do things that support soil versus destroying our soil, which is typically what is the incentives allow. So, so follow us on Instagram. We put up a ton of content there. We also put out short films all the time. And check us out, take a course, and it's really grateful.
There you go.
Great to be here.
Awesome. Keep doing what you do, gentlemen.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, Evan, Ryland. Round of applause for these two doing the deed. Thank you so much.